I love value add more than Class A multifamily, to be honest, because I feel like I'm doing something better for the community and for tenants. The satisfaction of bringing something to the table for everyone, it's so much rewarding than anything else. And not only financially, but as a good Samaritan spirit. You improve the life of tenants in Class C's and Class B's, and everybody's going to be grateful for that. And they are willing to pay you more rent because you put a dog park on their property, or you improve their playgrounds, or you make the pool nicer, or you painted the building, or they have Wi-Fi on the properties.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor! 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 Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Welcome to Physicians and Properties Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Alex Schloe, and today we had Dr. Tudor Francu on the podcast. This was a fantastic story. We talked about his journey out of communist Romania. He immigrated from Romania to the United States after he completed med school in Romania, came to the United States and started volunteering, and then got into a residency program as an anesthesiologist, and is now a practicing anesthesiologist in Maryland and has been doing that for quite some time. He's also been investing in real estate for over 20 years, and we talked about his progression from buying single-family homes and how he realized that he was ready to take it up to the next level and take advantage of the economies of scale that multifamily offers. This podcast, we also hit on some really important mindset concepts. We talk about ETP, or leveraging experience, time, and people, and how important that is to compress the amount of time that it takes for you to reach financial freedom. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's episode with Dr. Tudor Francu. Dr. Franku, so good to have you on the Physicians and Properties Podcast. Thanks for staying up late and calling in from Maryland. So glad to have you on the podcast today. How are you?
Alex, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. I'm really looking forward to hearing about your journey and hearing your story here on the podcast tonight. Do you mind telling folks a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm an anesthesiologist by trade. I practice in Maryland, and I've been doing real estate for over 20 years now. I'm an immigrant, came over in the United States when I was 28 with basically nothing in my hands, just some matter in between my ears that I can use. And I had to learn the language. I had to learn the financial system and kind of get going from scratch. So here I am 20 something years later, almost 30 now, with some good size real estate portfolio, a good practice, and a great life overall.
It sounds like things worked out well. From 28, immigrating to the United States. Where did you move from? Where did you immigrate from?
I'm Romanian, really.
What was that like, leaving Romania at 28, coming to the States? What sorts of fears did you have? How did you feel about that whole process?
Well, I went through the last years of communism, and on 1989, when the whole wall fell and the Iron Curtain fell, we had a very tough time in those Eastern European countries. It was kind of brutal in general, the life, day-to-day life. And it's something that it's hard to explain to someone who did not experience a communist system in their own words. But all I had to do is to go to school and make the most out of it. I did my medical school there. I graduated and I left right after because I tried to change the system from inside out with some student movements in the country and going and participate to all these kind of student movements to change the system. But I felt like I did my part and I had to move on. I took all the medical exams that needed to be taken to come over here. I finally arrived with very, very little money and not a lot of knowledge, but everything was basically a new planet for me. I had to learn the whole thing all over again. For a couple of years, I did everything I could on the sides to get some money and get by, and then found a residency position finally that got me through in the system, and that's all I needed. I needed the springboard to get me out and fly in the sky.
That's awesome. When you say change the system, were you trying to change the government system, communism, or working on the healthcare system in Romania, or a combination of both?
Yes, I think it was a combination of both. Once the communist system fell due to the revolutions and all the stuff that happened there, the first echelon of political system basically was compromised. There were people that grew up in communism. They had certain ideas. They couldn't take over to a new political open democracy, I would say. The students basically had the primary role to be the new generation, to change something from inside. And we did a lot. I mean, I think the organizations in Romania at that time, the student organizations, were very strong, and we did a lot of meetings and manifestations and political upbringing to the government to change certain things, to open up the country, get more freedoms to people, and even change the healthcare system slowly. For a couple of years, that what we did, I remember I was in the first or second year of my medical school there. We did this for almost 4 or 5 years till I graduated. I left right after that.
What was medical school like in Romania during that time?
Exceptional. Teachers, the school system, it's a French-based medical system. We had great teachers. The way I am right now, the way I practice, the way I think medically, it's due to them. I recommend that kind of school to everyone. In fact, we had a very big number of foreign students. They came to Romania to do medical school there because the reputation was exceptional.
What was it like when you came from Romania to practice in America? What were some of the differences that you saw, or differences in education as you went from Romania to the States?
It's, as I said, it was a different planet.
Yeah.
I remember I couldn't practice when I came here right away. I tried to volunteer in emergency rooms and medical offices and whatever I could do to learn firsthand from doctors that are practicing here. And I remember going into an emergency room and I didn't know anything. I couldn't touch a patient or anything like that. That was not allowed. But somebody asked me to give him a 4x4. I had no idea what that means. For people that are not medical, it's a piece of gauze it's 4 inch by 4 inch, but it's called 4x4 or 2x2 or whatever. All this medical jargon that we use right now, it was so foreign to me. This is where I was.
Wow. That's fascinating to hear it. What a challenge that you overcame coming here, everything that you experienced there. I mean, it's fascinating and really cool to hear. After residency, how'd that transition go, becoming an attending in the States? What was that like? I assume residency, I'd be curious to know, was residency easier for you, kind of having to go through more schooling, or do you feel like that it was harder, still learning at that point in time, kind of how medicine was done here?
I think it was easier in terms of the mindset I had, because I came from a country that hard work is really appreciated. I just put my head down and did my work and learn and study and did my job. I did really well in residency. And after I graduated in New York and I found a job down in Maryland, close to DC, I moved over here. And the first thing I started, I was in private practice right away. I didn't go through any kind of academic environment or anything like that. I had some kind of entrepreneur feeling in me at that time. And private practice in medicine, it's something of an oxymoron. I always say nobody teaches you anything about that. You don't learn anything in medical school about how to do business in medicine. Every one of us that's in private practice needs to know that, or needs to learn by himself. It's a very hard learning curve for someone who does not have any, I would say, entrepreneur spirit. That's one thing. The other thing is the curve is so steep to learn, especially if you are a foreign student, because the financial system here it's very complicated, I would say, for someone who comes in from outside and needs to learn everything from scratch. I had no idea what a debit card or the difference between a debit card and a credit card is. I haven't seen a card in my life at that time. I didn't know what people can do that. Because all we had exposure in that communist country was to cash, basically. So yeah, it was an interesting development.
Yeah, I bet it was. How did you go into real estate? How'd you get into real estate?
I didn't have any light bulb or anything like that. Oh my God, there's real estate I need to invest in. I think I had this in me from Romania, because that system is a system that is based on real things and real property. You either have cash or you have real property. There's nothing in between. There's no stock market. There was not at that time. You either have cash under your mattress or you invest in things like land, buildings, some form of agricultural business or anything like that. I think the only way that I knew where to invest my money was in real property until I discovered stock market and I lost a lot of money in it. Initially, I haven't lost anything in real property, honestly. Even if I didn't gain a lot, I still have it. It doesn't go anywhere. It keeps appreciating. It keeps depreciating, and it brings me sometimes good cash flow. From that point of view, I have nothing to complain about. Moreover, some of the investments that I made are bringing me so much tax advantages that it's kind of hard to ignore them.
Absolutely. What does the portfolio look like for you today, if you don't mind sharing?
I initially started with single family homes in the Baltimore area. I invested one by one house at a time, one door at a time. And again, the mentality was that I need to buy everything cash because I didn't know how to leverage my equity and my money at that time. I had to learn that also. Once I discovered that, I realized that my single family portfolio, which grew to pretty good size, I would say close to 30. They had so much equity in it that I had to find a way to leverage that. What I learned is that there is another way to scale this single family business, which was pretty productive, I would say. But I was at an age, and I am at an age that I don't have much time to wait for cash flow to pick up on single family homes. So I had to move to scale to a multifamily system. That's when I started to invest in apartment buildings, took my equity out of the single family homes and invested in multifamily apartment buildings, which are a different animal. They're not real estate investments. They're more of a business acquisitions, I would say, because you run the building as a business, more of a rental home. The major difference is that an apartment building appreciates based on the net operating income. It's a business income that you have to make, deducting expense and calculating rents and all this stuff, where you can leverage many other people on doing this whole business. You can leverage even tenants because the occupancy is based on a much larger number of doors than in a single family home business. If you lose a tenant, you basically go from 100 to 0 occupancy in single family homes. It's a different animal. You have to think a little bit bigger. You have to think a little bit more business-like, I would say.
The economies of scale with apartment buildings is fantastic, and kind of a defensive measure, like you said, of, hey, if we have a 100-unit apartment building and 75 are rented and 25 are vacant, at least you're still getting 75% compared to that one single family house where you lose your tenant and you're not getting anything until you get a new one. Do you remember, was there a specific mindset shift that happened when you went from single families to multifamilies? I know you said you're like, hey, I don't have enough time to keep buying these single families, but do you remember, was there something that was like a light bulb going off, like, hey, this just makes sense, it's time to take the leap? Or do you feel as if that was just a natural progression for you to go from single family to multifamily?
Yes. I think the moment was pretty clear for me. I started investing in single family homes when I read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I went to some of his seminars initially, and that's how I started. Then I read a book about other people's money and other people's time, which is a concept that it's very powerful when you start leveraging resources that are around you, not only money and things, but experience, time, and people. By doing that, you progress to something that is a community-based investment, I would say, in multifamily, where you have a team instead of one person, and everybody knows and does specific things to help everybody else. When you have a team like that, your progression is exponential compared to doing things by yourself. You always say you go fast if you do things by yourself, but you go very far if you do it in a team. Once I discovered that, it was clear to me that there is no way back to where I was before, where trying to do things by myself, find solutions by myself. Delegation was something that already popped up in my head, because once you start delegating things to the right people, you get the right results.
It's tough for folks, I think, to go from that mindset of, I have to do everything on my own and I want that full control, to leveraging experience, time, people, like you said. Has there been any tips or tricks that you've learned along the way? Or if someone is at that inflection point right now of, hey, I think I need to build a team and I think I need to grow a team, but I'm scared for whatever reason, what advice would you give them getting started building out their team?
First of all, what I would say, the major thing that you need to do in that case is to put yourself in rooms with smarter people than you, because you're going to soak in all that experience and wisdom one way or another. Networking is probably the best important thing that you can do for yourself. And you'll be amazed how many people you can meet and how many relationships you can create by putting yourself in that kind of environments, conferences, meetups, webinars, anything that you can find to get people around you that know more than you. Mentorship is probably one of the things that you should do at this point if you want to scale at that level, because you compress time and you compress experience from someone that did it before you, and you don't have to experiment or wait or find the right people. Everything is there. You pay some money for it, but it's well worth payment for that.
I agree 100%. Networking, most powerful, most important thing you can do. I've seen it in my own life. I can't believe how networking, how the podcast, I had a guest, Amanda on the podcast, and she's been on twice now. She's a tax expert. She's amazing. Long story short, that led to me having a conversation with Brandon Turner's team. And then today I recorded a podcast episode on Brandon Turner's podcast, and it all just came from networking and like having the courage to come out and do the podcast. It took a long time for me to have that courage just to start this. I had a bunch of people who were reaching out to me, and finally I just took the leap. And it's been unbelievable to see how fast you can grow if you surround yourself with the right people, you're in the right rooms, you're willing to just take action. I mean, just those three things can make a huge difference. And a lot of times people get hung up, even doctors, like we're fortunate that we have a pretty decent income, but we get hung up on like, oh, I don't want to pay $1,000 to go to this conference, or I don't want to pay $2,000 to go to this mastermind. And then you're just stuck spinning the wheel in analysis paralysis and never getting started. When if you just spent that extra money and you joined a community or you joined a mastermind, that compression of time is going to pay off so much more than what you would ever spend for that mastermind. It's really interesting. I think it takes like a different way of thinking and a mindset shift to realize that that's the case. So I hope folks listening to this today really hear what we're saying and really go to that next meetup or go to that next webinar, or if that you're thinking about joining a mastermind, join that mastermind.
I would say this is not an expense. This is definitely an investment. Yeah. And financial education is probably the first thing you should invest in before doing anything other than businesses or real estate or anything else. You need to educate yourself first, and you educate yourself by investing in something like this, like in networking events, in conferences, in mentors, in masterminds. Once you have that knowledge based and relationships created, you can go ahead and do whatever investments you want to do. But that first investment will always pays off, always gives you cash flow or dividends.
Absolutely. Were there any specific mentors for you or masterminds or conferences that really stick out as like really making a big difference for you as you were going along on your real estate journey?
Yes. As a mindset, I think Tony Robbins' events and environment and ecosystem proved to be very, very resourceful for me in terms of how you sustain your mindset through different kinds of ups and downs in your life, how you think about yourself, how you position, and how you practice mindfulness, basically, because it all comes from that. We don't have a globe to see the future. We just have to every day to do the little things that we can to position yourself in the best situation you can. So I think Tony's environment was very beneficial for me, specifically for multifamily. I think Brad Sumrock ecosystem was something that I enjoyed and got the best out of it, I would say. It's something that I always look to be in masterminds with people that can move me forward. There's plenty of places you can discover in all areas that you want to do that. It's not even worth mentioning anything more than that, because at some point, every single person you meet everywhere, somehow it's going to help you.
Yeah. But I think especially if you're willing to provide value and have that abundance mentality, it's going to come back twofold, threefold, fourfold. It's just going to come back. I love hearing that. I think that this is the stuff that doesn't get talked about as much on podcasts, but it's so important to set that foundation to really help you jumpstart and then exit your real estate investment journey or your journey towards financial freedom. Let's talk a little bit more about the multifamily portfolio. How has that been working for you? How has the multifamily journey been for you? Especially the last few years, there's a lot of news about multifamily and so forth. How have things been?
Well, like any other investment, it's something that goes up and down, has a certain amount of risk, and you need to be very careful what you do. Again, financial education comes first. You need to learn the basics and then expect that you're going to lose some money at some point, because there's no investment in this world that's going to make you a millionaire overnight. The same thing happened to multifamily. People considered 3-4 years ago that it's full of gold and we're going to get rich quick with this thing. And that never happened. It was normal, because some people, I got, for example, what I did, I said, okay, after I educate myself, I have to see how things are working. I invested passively in a couple of deals myself to see how the communication goes, how the deals are made, working with the general partnership team. Everything was fine up until I got the opportunity of being in a general partnership team, be part of it. And that's a big responsibility. I thought there was something that I need to learn more about, because you can't just like change your name overnight from LP to GP. You have a big responsibility for your investors, for the tenants, for the community, and it's your name on the line. The only important thing we have in this life is our reputation. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter how much money you have anymore. For me, that's number one, I would say. Some investments are going well, some investments are not going well, and I'm perfectly okay if I would lose some money on some of the investments, but earn a lot on the others. The judgment of how and where to invest is, again, about people. Everybody says real estate is about location, 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 which is very true. Unless you have a good team, you can put a great location to the ground with a bad team. And on the other side, you can have a very successful investment in a crappy location with an excellent team. It's all about how you operate the business. Because again, it's a business, it's not a rental. You need business-minded people to run as a GP team. That's why I try to get into people that are having that quality and run it as a business. Overall, I think we need to think about interest rates and where they are right now. People are freaking out because they made poor judgment calls, pick the loans up for their properties. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of money they need to put in still. Again, nothing is going to be perfect. I have properties that are not doing well. I have properties that are doing very well. Overall, I think it's going to be a great outcome. But again, the judgment is in the people you associate.
That's a great answer. The team can really make all the difference and set you up for success. Are you investing in multifamily largely in Maryland, or are you investing in other states at this point?
No, I think most of my investments are in Texas right now. That market is especially appealing for many, many reasons, especially the influx of jobs and people over the past few years. It's a no state tax. They're very landlord friendly. The overall benefit of that state investments outpace every other state. Honestly, I have a couple of investments still in Maryland that are going well, but it's one of those things that you need to be careful with in terms of how you act as a landlord in those states, because there are many, many restrictions. There are many, many regulations that you need to follow. It's not regarded as well as a business. It's more of a, I would say, community rental activity for tenants and for people who can afford to pay a certain rent. Government has a lot more power in those states where they regulate the rent increase. They make you do certain things for tenants and qualify for being a landlord, basically. That comes with a lot of other headaches that you need to run. Overall, it's not bad, but I would say I would prefer states like Texas in general for more of a business approach.
In terms of your buy box, are you looking mostly for value add properties, ABC neighborhoods? What does that look like?
I love value add more than Class A multifamily, to be honest, because I feel like I'm doing something better for the community and for tenants. There's a lot more work that you need to do to improve those buildings and communities, but the satisfaction of bringing something to the table for everyone, it's so much rewarding than anything else. And not only financially, but as a good Samaritan spirit. You improve the life of tenants apartments in Class C's and Class B's, and everybody's going to be grateful for that. And they are willing to pay you more rent because you put a dog park on their property, or you improve their playgrounds, or you make the pool nicer, or you painted the building, or they have Wi-Fi on the properties. There's so many things you can do for those people to be happy and keep them on your property. I don't mind Class A. It's not something that I necessarily do. I feel like, I don't know, I'm trying to develop a system, I would say, for helping people rather than just buy a building and increase rents.
It's cool how you can transform a community by those value add components and just taking care of deferred maintenance. You're exactly right. The beautiful thing of multifamily that we already hit on is economies of scale, and the building is valued off the net operating income. So the more you're able to increase that net operating income, the more you're able to add value to that building as a whole and set up your investors well and yourself too. It's just a really cool opportunity. Like just adding that dog park and being able to charge a pet fee can add a significant amount of value to a multifamily community. So that's awesome. Where do you see things headed in the future for you?
The future is something that you make for yourself. The way I see my future is the way I see my goals. Obviously, anything can happen to any of us at any time. But in terms of planning, I think we're responsible for how you plan your life and how you plan your investments and your career. At this point, I see myself a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I have different plans and different goals, and with God willing, I'll be healthy and be able to make those goals happen. But in terms of investing and business, I want to expand my portfolio, obviously, and try to help people by doing that. Not only for money, but more for creating a legacy than anything else. I can see myself in 10 years probably not doing this anymore and kind of take a break and step back and just enjoy life. But I don't see myself retired. I don't know why. The concept of retirement for me is a little bit strange, because retiring means that you retire from something. But retirement here means that you retire from everything and you're not doing anything. I can't do that. I have to find... I have many hobbies. I'll not be retired. I don't want to call myself retired because I'm going to do something every time from now on, regardless of real estate or medicine or whatever it is. So yeah, it's the way you envision your life till the end, and hopefully everything works out. But who knows?
That's great. A lot of what we talk about here is how you can use real estate or entrepreneurship to give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want to. How has real estate and your investments given you that opportunity to practice anesthesiology how you want to or live life how you want to?
I think especially for people in medical profession, this is a major advantage to invest in real estate, because what real estate gave me is not only a safe place to put my money, but also it gives you a decent cash flow. The property appreciates, as I said, over time. It gets a lot of depreciation on those multifamily apartment buildings that you invest in. And sometimes you take huge tax advantages by doing that. You have multiple ways to take advantage of a real estate investment. And I think till the end, the question is, how do you use this real estate investment to help you in medicine? Well, I think freedom of time, it's probably the most important thing for me. I would say the cash flow that you're going to get, or the appreciation when you sell a building, that amount of money can say, okay, maybe I don't want to practice for the next 5 years or next 3 years. And you can do that. You have a choice. It's not going to make it or break it, or you're going to stop practicing all of a sudden, but it gives you a choice of doing what you want to do. And that's most important for a lot of people in medical field, because a lot of people are burned out. I feel like after a certain amount of years of practicing medicine every day, they are burned out and they want to have a break, but they cannot afford that. They're waiting for retirement years to spend that time with family or travel or do something, a hobby or anything else, and they can't do that. I always said, I like stock market when it goes up. But imagine, and I had friends and people close to me that they lost almost everything when the stock market crashed for no reason, for reasons that you cannot control. And they were like a year or two before their retirement and everything went away. They had no investments other than the stock market, and there was no properties. There were no real estate investments to make anything out of it. Those people had to start all over again or prolong their career for another 5 to 10 years. And it's hard. It's very hard. That's why I would encourage people to look at different other types of investments. Real estate is one of them. But there are many other types of investment. They can get you out of the stock market where you cannot control much. It's so passive that it's almost boring and useless. Some people get rich from stock market. I agree with that, but that's mostly pure luck. When you do a real estate investment or any investment in real property, it's something that you own and you make something out of it by your own decisions, not by a CEO decision or whatever happens in Ukraine or in Russia or anywhere else in the world. Again, it comes back to financial education. And I think that's the first step that people need to do.
I'm so grateful that you're here educating people tonight. This has been a lot of wisdom and a lot of good information. If folks are looking to reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing or any investment opportunities that you have, how can they reach you? And then also plug your podcast as well.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to share my experiences and advice if anybody needs it. My website is multifamily.com, where you can find a lot of resources and know a lot about me and what I'm doing. And also, just because we talked about this recently, I started a podcast just for that reason, to start educating medical professionals and in general healthcare workers about different types of investment, especially real estate, and see how can you be successful in general out of this career, medical career. It's called Stellar Success Podcast. You can check it out.
Awesome. We'll be sure to put a link to those in the show notes. I'm looking forward to coming on the podcast in a couple of weeks. Thanks for the invite. It'll be a good time and a good conversation. Awesome. Well, is there anything else we didn't hit on? Any closing shots before we wrap things up?
No, I think people need to take care of themselves first. Health, nutrition, fitness. Like I say, people are first, then things, then money.
That's a perfect way to end it. Well, with that, it's been Dr. Tudor Francu and Dr. Alex Schloe with another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. Signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.